I have found one of those rare quiet places at E3, and I am fortunate enough to be joined by Albert Pinello, who is the Director of Marketing with Microsoft. How are you doing, sir?
Good, doing well.
Cool. So, you guys announced some stuff this week. I don't even know where to start. So, what do you feel like is the biggest focus for Microsoft, or the biggest kind of most tentpole announcement that you had this week?
Yeah, it's a good question. We get that a lot. I mean, I think it almost depends on what you want to talk about. If you want to talk about games, we had an unbelievable lineup of exclusives and some, great franchises like Crackdown coming back and Splinter Cell exclusive. We had some awesome announcements on live, like the Netflix improvements and the 1080p streaming. And then, of course, the Project Natal, the new 3D sensor that we're releasing sometime in the future. Just a bunch of amazing announcements. The Beatles.
Yeah. It's pretty much hard to get bigger than the Beatles, I guess. But, I guess Natal is the thing that everybody's really obviously you had a big lineup, a lot of big names, but that's kind of the high concept, vision of the future stuff. What compelled you guys to roll it out now while it's still in sort of the R&D phase and before obviously it's got a final kind of marketing-focused title on it?
Well, I think it was a couple of things. The first is, obviously at a show like this, to get the imagination of the game creators in the industry and really share our vision with people and energize the community around the types of experiences is one reason. The other reason, quite frankly, is I think we had some cool stuff to show, and we felt like it was a good time. We'd been going out, we've been talking to developers, we talked to people like Steven Spielberg and things like that, and we thought we got some great demos. We want to share the vision with the world, so let's bring it out and see what people think.
Very cool. So do you see this as sort of the future of the Xbox? I mean, at the conference you guys talked about, complicated controllers, lots of buttons are pretty off-putting for a lot of people. So is the controllerless future the future, or is it just part of the future? I mean, are you always going to have that kind of backbone of hardcore sort of shooters and traditional stuff?
Yeah, I think that's one of the great things about Xbox, and one of the things that we've always done has been about choice. And certainly as a gamer myself, we have probably the best controller ever made, or certainly the epitome of that type of controller with the 360 controller. And so, hey, games like Halo, Call of Duty Modern Warfare are always going to be great with the controller, and we're always going to deliver those. We announced, the Halo, Crackdown, Alan Wake, all these games coming in the future. What I think about this is, if you are going to go ahead and go out and say, let's really try and get new customers and new types of experiences, we already had the best device for this, but what was really keeping people from finally moving over and trying video games, and it was that thing can be intimidating. So no, I don't see this as eliminating the controller at all, and I think it's really important that people that love the Xbox understand this is going to be enhancing the experience you love, not replacing it. We're not going to try and force the games that are great on the controller to be on this. What I really want to see happen is have those same great game creators, the guys that brought first-person shooters from the mouse and keyboard to the controller, what can they do with this? And also, what entirely new types of things can happen. So, we showed Thwack and Ricochet and Paint Party, and that was kind of almost like the tires and the wheels, just showing that it works, that you can actually control things with your body. And then we showed the Milo demo, which is mind-blowing because it's not what you ever think of traditionally as games. And to me, that's the most exciting part about this is the entirely new types of experiences that people like Molyneux and the other creators in the industry are going to bring. So I think it's part of an amazing future on top of the stuff we do with live and the multiplayer gaming and all the media stuff. So it's part of our future.
So what are some of the other kind of big focuses for you guys? Obviously you're pushing live arcade pretty big at this thing. You've got the games on demand stuff. Can you speak to sort of some of the business aspects of that?
Sure. Yeah. I think that with the stuff that we've done with arcade and seeing that there's finally with the storage options we have on live, to ability to do digital distribution, and to finally now be able to download full games, I just think it's a great enhancement. You're always going to want to go into retail and you're going to want to grab that box and look at the screenshots, and that experience is never going to go away. But I also think there's a group of people that's like, I heard that Burnout was great, and I don't want to go to the store. Oh, there it is. I'll pick it up. And again, it's all about choice and letting people kind of consume this stuff the way they want to. So I'm really excited about it. And then obviously the stuff that we're doing with live, and the 1080p instant streaming, the Netflix improvements. People are finally starting to think of live beyond just the multiplayer gaming. And I think with arcade, with Netflix, with the Sky announcements and bringing it internationally, there's just so much cool stuff that Xbox can do now.
Cool. So, I mean, we've been seeing the price points of Live Arcade like sort of, inch upward a little bit lately, It hovered at $10 for a long time. Now 15 is kind of the new 10. And then like the on-demand games that you've shown, the retail games seem to be around the $20 mark. I mean, when do you get into overlap between what's on Live Arcade and what constitutes a full retail release that you can get digitally, and at what point do you transition to just doing full games, straight through the internet, no retail release?
I mean, that's a great question. I think the industry's going to have to figure that out. Certainly games like Shadow Complex are pushing the boundaries of arcade, and yet we're still going back and doing fun things like Marvel vs. Capcom and stuff like that. So I think it's just great to let people in the industry sort of figure it out and discover what's the right balance. So I hope we continue doing the $5 and $10 games, and yeah, I mean, someday we're going to be doing the full stuff, and I think the industry will figure it out.
Yeah. Have your kind of retail partners had anything to say about this plan so far? Has there been a lot of communication there?
Yeah, I mean, obviously retail is an important part, and like I said, I don't ever think that experience of going in and buying games is going to go away. And I think you've still got the consoles, our points cards, and there's still a lot of partnership with our retail partners, and that's obviously important. I don't think it's going to go away. What we've really seen with arcade. I mean, we have record attach rates, so clearly even with the digital distribution we're doing today, lots of games are still being sold. So, the easier you make it for people when they feel like they want to play, to let them have an opportunity, I think the better it is for the industry.
Fair enough. So, obviously, I mean, you've got Natal, you've got constantly evolving methods of digital distribution. I mean, you're constantly adding things onto this box. How much do you feel like those additions forestall the need for a whole new box? I mean, does this, like each kind of major innovation, does that keep pushing the line back before you have to really start thinking about a new console?
You tell me.
I mean, I'm not exactly eager to buy another $400 console anytime soon, but I mean, it's got to happen eventually.
And I think there will always be console generation changes. But it used to be this 5-year cycle, and you sort of force the entire industry to pony up and change. And I think what we did last year with the new Xbox experience was a shift, because typically that kind of experience would wait for a new console. And there's so much power in our box, and we've always talked about that we're able to change the entire experience. We're able to add 1080p streaming. We're able to add Netflix. We're now going to add controller-free gaming. So, I think we'll change when we feel like we've run out of things to be able to do on the box.
Right. Cool. So you guys have focused so heavily on digital distribution this time. I mean, you've got what I think is a pretty effective method of sort of rights management. I mean, you buy a game and then you can re-download it, if you move to another console, or, you lose your hard drive or whatever. But what happens when you reach that day when there is a new Xbox? I mean, what happens to all the stuff that people bought from Live Arcade or this new games on demand service? Like, do you feel compelled to let that stuff carry over, or do people just need to keep their 360 around forever to play that stuff?
I mean, that's a great question, and I think those are one of the details that you need to think about when you start thinking about what does it mean to be a next generation console, and what does the next step need to be. So it's a little speculative to think about that, but I do think that Live is, from Xbox to Xbox 360, and from whatever the future comes from Xbox, that's a great thing about Live, is that your identity and those types of things continue to come with you. So, it's obviously too soon to think about those types of things, but certainly that's one of the great advantages of Live.
Cool. So obviously some other companies have been rolling some stuff out this week. I'm kind of curious, since I've got you for just a couple minutes, what your thoughts are on, the stuff Nintendo's been showing with their fitness stuff, and obviously the Motion Plus, and then Sony's got their own idea about how motion control should go. Like, how do you think, or what do you think about the way those guys are approaching that stuff?
It's interesting to see how everything's played out, and certainly, as Don said at E3, we could have delivered a motion controller, but I think we felt that we already had a great controller, and that step had sort of been done. And when we really thought about what the barrier was to really getting new people, I mean, we've had this great story where we've done focus testing with customers and just put the camera in front of them and said, just go figure out how to play. And within 30 seconds, someone has figured out how to play, and that's really interesting. The more interesting thing was right after that, we asked his mom to come play, and his mom was playing in 5 seconds. And then the story I say is, I can show you how to play Burnout, and I can show my mom and give her the controller, and she's not playing Burnout. But this kind of experience really is breaking down that barrier because it's so intuitive. So, I mean, I think what Sony's doing is interesting, and what Nintendo's doing, I mean, certainly they brought some innovation to the industry, and I think it's great. But, it's still a controller, and it's still something in your hand, and I think there's still a certain barrier, and I didn't really see anything that they've shown that we can't do on top of the voice recognition, the facial recognition, the full body control. So I think we're really taking a huge leap forward.
Very cool. And before I let you go, I know I'm sure you've been in a lot of meeting rooms like this all show, but what's like the one thing that you've seen, Microsoft or not, that's just really impressed you, game or otherwise?
Well, I have to tell you, I was absolutely blown away by the Modern Warfare 2 trailer, but there's a soft spot in my heart for Splinter Cell, and I actually hadn't seen Splinter Cell, the full demo, until the briefing. So that's probably the one where it reminds me of the first time I saw Splinter Cell on Xbox, and it was like really raised the bar. And I think Splinter Cell Conviction is amazing.
Sam Fisher really seems like the comeback kid at this show, really.
Totally. Yeah, I totally agree.
Well, thanks a lot, Albert. I'm gonna let you go now, let you get back to all your business. But thanks again.
Thanks.